Sorry, Dr. Deb. I'm gonna cut this out probably, but it's fine.
Hey, Sam.
It's so good to see you today.
How are you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah? I really love your sweater.
Thank
The logo's
you.
really cool. Where's it
Thank
from?
you. The LA Dream Center.
Okay.
I went last year on a missions trip with a group of my friends for school.
That's really cool.
And so it's like this non-profit organization, and they do a lot of like homeless outreach and stuff
That's really
in
awesome.
LA.
Yeah, that's
Did I
really
say that?
exciting.
Yeah.
I think you did, but that's really awesome.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you got that opportunity. So school's going good then?
School's a little stressful, but it's
Okay.
third year, and it's kind of to be expected. So
Mhm.
I think it's just kind of allowing myself to just be stressed and then get over it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So school's not like super big issue then?
Not particularly. I mean, money for school, but I think I have a job grant coming in that hopefully will kind of smooth all of that over. So
That's good. So probably not the main issue then that you wanted to come and talk about today. Was there something bigger in your mind to talk about, or?
yeah, I mean, like, I've been struggling a lot in this one issue that has recently come up in my life. There's this big thing, not really big, but it feels big, you know?
Yeah.
And so basically, there's this guy
Okay.
that I have known for about 3 years, and he's a very dear friend of mine. And up until recently, he has been enamored with this girl. And so I never allowed myself to feel a certain way for him because he was so intrigued by this girl, basically. And that ended. And I kind of realized for myself, and I'd kind of known, but I hadn't. It's like the kind of thing where if you don't speak it, it's not real.
Okay.
Right. And so, like, to me, it was very much like, all of a sudden, all of my friends were like, Holly, this boy is, like, perfect for you. And I was like, no, there's another boy at school, because, yeah. And I was like, there's another boy at school, and he's going to be perfect for me. And then it came out, like, literally like 4 days ago, that he's interested in a girl that, like, isn't even from the school. And so, like, in my head, the minute that someone is interested in another person, it's kind of just like they're done kind of thing.
Right.
But all of a sudden, this one guy, not the school guy, the friend guy, all of a sudden was just, like, this, like, bold letter, basically. If that makes sense. Like,
What do you
bold.
mean by that?
Like, all of a sudden, it was, like, highlighted.
Okay. Yeah.
I think is the right word, not bold, but, like, highlighted in my life. And then a bunch of people who I trust very dearly in my life all started to be like, Holly. And, like, obviously they're joking, but I think that kind of snowballed, maybe. Maybe. I don't know how to word it. Like, it kind of progressed the idea I had of him. So it went from being something that I was like, I don't know if I can think about this because he's into another girl. And then that whole thing ended, and I was like, oh, maybe this is something, because I've always kind of felt this way about this guy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's gotten bigger because people have been pointing it out to me a lot more. And I think that's been pushing the attraction, I guess, to him.
The snowball.
Yeah, the snowball. And I don't know. I find that I'm very scared because he's a very good friend of mine. And also that, like, yeah, like, I don't know what to do, basically. Like, I'm very, I'm very cautious and, like, nervous about even, like, allowing for those feelings to continue, kind of thing.
So it's a good friend. It's a scary feeling for sure when it's new, and maybe I'm not sure if it's new for you or not. But, like, can you speak more to that? Like, why do you think there might be some fear surrounding those feelings?
I think the idea of dating is really scary to me. I was chatting with a friend of mine today about it, actually. But it's really nerve-wracking to me because, like, I don't know what it looks like.
Okay.
Like, I haven't seen a lot of healthy love relationships in my life. And so, relationships in my life.
Yeah.
And it's very, like, I've never dated anybody before, and this is someone that I really care about, and the idea that, one, I could be seeing something that's not actually there.
Mm-hmm.
2, if something's there, what the freak? What do you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of like cautious because I don't know what it looks like to be in a relationship with somebody.
Right. Would you say relationship at all, or like healthy relationship? Because you said before, like, you said something about the love. Sorry, pause. It's okay. I'm gonna
Cut stuff?
cut for a second. Jump back in. Would you say it's you haven't seen healthy relationships before, or any relationships before? Because you said before you're just a little confused about what relationships seem to look like.
Yeah. Well, like, obviously I've seen relationships before.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen healthy relationships for the most part. I didn't grow up in a healthy environment.
Okay.
And so, like, my parents' relationship was very, like, of course, that's the only relationship you really see. And so, like, to me, like, love always seems conditional in a sense. And so, like, I've never, like, they never had a healthy relationship when I was a kid. Like, literally, I don't think I ever really, like, felt stable when it came to their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to me now, I think subconsciously, because I'm aware that relationships, like, marriage is forever kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that this is a whole marriage thing with this guy, but, like, you know, you're dating as a Christian, you're dating for marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
To say that I'm even gonna date the guy is crazy, but, like, the idea that, like, this is a commitment to somebody, and logically I know that that's what marriage is, but I've never seen that.
The commitment or the healthy part of the marriage?
Both.
Both.
I've seen commitment
Mm-hmm.
in, like, glimpses.
Right.
Because, like, I have very dear friends who are very, like, obviously all marriages have their problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, outwardly and, like, from what I've heard from my friends, like, their families, like, their parents' relationship, although not perfect, is quite good. Right? Like, I have friends who are like, yeah, my parents love each other very much. They're very clearly in love.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things. And so to me, like, that is a shocking thing.
Right.
Because that's not what I ever saw.
Mm. Can you speak more to what you did see? So, like, what does a relationship look like to you based off your experience with it?
It looks conditional.
Mm.
My parents are both stubborn, loud, and think they're right.
Mm.
And so 2 people with that same mentality in a house together, well, it's not quiet, nor is it kind.
Mm.
And so they always were fighting,
Mm.
and it always felt like their love was conditional. Like, their love specifically, like, it was like they did things for each other, and they had to, like, prove to each other almost.
Mm.
But it was never like a cutesy proving kind of way. It was, Dad didn't get Mom something for Valentine's Day, so she's pissed and she won't talk to him for a couple of days.
Mm.
And so, like, it always felt conditional, and it always felt like you had to work for it. And, like, now in my head, I see that transfer over in my friendships.
Mm.
And in my relationships, I feel like I have to work. Even though logically, that I know that's not true.
Right.
But I think, like, the way that I saw my parents interact when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
really obviously affected the way that I view forever, basically, like a commitment.
Mm. Right.
Because they, obviously, if you can't tell, got divorced. But their relationship was always rocky. Like, once I hit, like, 11 years old, 10 years old, it was, like, obviously there were problems before, but then it was, like, things that I was, like, conscious enough and aware enough to actually understand.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so you feel like the conditions of their love is kind of what you received from them, that love is a conditional state. It's not something that is just given freely, and then you feel as though you can see how it's transferred into your relationships now.
Mm-hmm.
So that fear that you're talking about with relationships, you think that it's a fear that you won't be able to give unconditional love, or that you won't receive it? Or is there another option maybe?
I think it's both.
Mm.
I'm afraid that I won't be able to love someone properly.
Right.
because I theoretically know what real love looks like. But I don't think I'm very good at loving people. And I think that I constantly have to prove that I love people in order for them to stick around, basically. Like, I feel like that's all that I'm worth. It's what I give. And so then I'm also afraid that, like, I will love someone so dearly and they just won't love me as much. And so I'm scared to love someone well, and I'm scared to be loved because I don't think it will be the same, I guess.
Can you like give me an example maybe of a time where you felt like you did love someone? Like maybe something you did or something you said that you felt like it was a loving thing.
Frick. See, I just feel like all the love things that I do are transactional.
All, or you just can't think of maybe, because even from just speaking to you, I can hear your heart for people and your heart for love, knowing what love looks like. Like you said, you in theory know what that means.
Yeah.
So I can see you have a heart underneath all of this that is to love people, right?
Yeah.
So in all of those feelings of transaction, the actions that you're giving, maybe sometimes they feel transactional, but I'm sure because of what I've heard right now that there have been moments where other people wouldn't necessarily feel that. So I'm just wondering if maybe there was like an example of something you did for someone that is loving that you can think of, and we can maybe look through how that felt transactional, but how maybe there was also a lot of authenticity to it as well.
I mean, I guess like a couple days ago, my friend's birthday party, I was chatting with one of my friends and just felt like really called to like speak into her life, and like God gave me a word, but like I don't feel like that's me. Like I feel like that's God loving someone through me.
Right.
I don't know. Like I feel very much like yes, I love people. I love my friends. I love my roommates. I love my family. Like all of these things. Like I know that I love them, but like I don't know if I do it well. But I'm scared that people. Okay, how do I word this? I'm scared that people won't know how much I love them, and if they don't know how much I love them, then they'll leave. So I have to prove that I love them so they don't leave. Right.
Well, like we've been talking about your feelings of love being conditional because of what you saw and stuff. It sounds like a lot of that comes from a fear. It's sounding like fear. Maybe you think that would be accurate, or
yeah, I would say yeah. I think I'm scared to be, I guess, left maybe.
Was there like a time in your life where someone you loved and cared about did leave, and maybe that it showed you what that looked like and how that felt?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, when I was 12, my dad and I moved out of our family home to live with his parents because my grandpa had dementia. We moved out to Pigeon Lake, which is about an hour 15 away from Edmonton, but my mom stayed in Edmonton, and she didn't mean to, I know, but we kind of lost contact for about 2 years. And not that lost contact, I knew where she was. Sometimes I would go visit her. Like, she would live at my aunt's house, and I would go to my aunt's on weekends, but my mom worked on weekends. So it felt very much like I literally was just there at my aunt's house with my aunt, doing chores and stuff, whatever. And then mom would come home and she'd be too tired to talk, really. So then she would go get ready for bed or whatever, and then go to bed. And then my dad would pick me up on a Sunday night, and I would go back to school, and I wouldn't talk to my mom for a week. And then sometimes I would go to, and like it felt like joint custody basically,
right?
But without law, and just like I for 2 years, I would say probably 2 to 3 years, I just didn't have a relationship with my mom. She never texted me. She didn't know how to text truthfully. She never called me. I saw her at Thanksgiving and I saw her at Christmas. And that was kind of it.
This is when you were 12, you said?
12 to about 13, 12 to about 14-ish, like going into 15 years old.
Right.
Yeah, like she just kind of left, and I felt like if I ever wanted to talk to her, I would have to work really, really hard for it. And I think even with my dad, because like him and I would argue so often that it felt like any comfort or love that I would get from him, I had to like fight for, basically. Which is so ironic because I'm an only child, so you'd think that all I would get would be attention, but whatever, it's fine.
Did you feel like you had to, like, you're saying you're arguing with your dad a lot, you had to fix the problem before you could talk about anything else that was loving or caring or good?
Yeah, and even so, it would never get there. Like, it would be fighting. I would finally break down, cry, he would come and apologize, and then that would be it. Like, it felt, I, like, didn't have a stable person from home that I could talk to about my problems.
Right. Did you feel like you had maybe a mentor or a peer or someone outside of the home that you did have to kind of talk through these things?
Yes. I was very, very blessed to have a good youth group and a good church that I found when I was 12. And I had a youth leader and a youth pastor. So my youth leader, Robin, who is basically my big sister. Like, I call her that to people. I tell people she's my big sister because in my head that's who she is. And she walked with me for a very long time with my family. And then also my friend Lexi, who's like older than me, so like it counts, and I call it that. But she also was very, very much like that because she had a very similar story with her family. And then my youth pastor. Like, there were people, like, I knew there were caring adults who did love me. It just wasn't, it never felt like it was a home.
Right. What did that love feel like from those people? Was it different from your family?
Yeah.
Different from your parents? Yeah, so what was that like for you?
I feel like they called it out when I tried to fight for it. You know, like
the love?
Yeah, specifically Robin and well, actually all three of them would, because they would be like, Holly, like, I don't understand why you're like we just love you, basically. Like, it felt like, okay, do you know when you have like a really hard day and you like just hug someone and your whole body just like is all the tension all of a sudden it's just gone? That's how it felt when I would go to church and like see them. And, like, they would ask me about my life, is that it kind of just felt like all of this, like, stress and tension and, like clenching released, I think. Like, it was very calm.
So would you say, like, that was unconditional love? Was that what you think that might be?
Yeah, probably. I think so. But, like, I think it's difficult for me to, comprehend that because they're not family and therefore what they have no reason to love me unconditionally. Ooh. Interesting.
Are you realizing now, like, maybe that unconditional love is without reason? Is that
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I think very much it is like I've never felt like complete unconditional love because they had no reason to love me unconditionally. Because I didn't do anything for them to love me like that.
So even in your view of what unconditional love is, you're putting conditions on it, like putting that transaction back on it, right? So, how would you view God's love then? Like, what has been your experience in loving God and knowing His love for you?
Theoretically, I know that God loves me unconditionally.
Right.
And I don't know how to explain it because I do know that God loves me unconditionally. And I understand literally that he died on the cross for me and there's nothing I can do, I understand that concept.
Right.
I'm a third year in Bible college. Like, I know the right answer. However, I think sometimes, like, if I sin or if I mess up, I'm like, I need to work 10 times harder to go back to God. And then I don't because I realize that I don't. Do you know what I mean? And then I feel like a failure because I realized that I didn't have to work to go back to God and his love. But I realize that I don't actually have to, but even though I feel like a failure, do you know what I mean?
It sounds like a cycle of fear and anxiety about doing love correctly.
Yeah.
When you know in theory what love really is when it's unconditional from God.
Yeah. And I've felt God's love unconditionally. I am a wretched sinner.
Yeah.
And I don't deserve it. But yet I have a God who literally doesn't care. Well, he does care, but then he said, just kidding, literally washed by the blood. And so I think that, like, sometimes I get it. Sometimes it clicks. And then sometimes it doesn't. But I think with God, I know that he kind of has to love me unconditionally because that's who he is.
Right.
And so then I think I think what I struggle with is the idea of having to love versus wanting to love. Because I feel like it's not... it's not unconditional if you have to love me.
Right.
But I know that God has to love me because that's who he is. But he also wanted to love me. But, like, with people, when they say they, like, for example, Robin, she doesn't have to love me. She chose to. So I feel like at one point that choice is going to change. And I have to continue to present myself for her to realize that, oh, I can continue to choose to love Holly.
So it sounds like you've kind of meshed these two things together, the have to and the want to, because in all of this, like, what love is, at the end of the day, end all be all, is that it is conditional. Is what it sounds like you feel, whether or not you know that's true or not.
Yeah. That's the feeling, even though I know the feeling is wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, I recognize, yes, love is unconditional, because my Savior's love is unconditional. But that doesn't mean that people's love is unconditional, because the unconditional love I was supposed to feel had to still be conditional in some regard. So then I feel like I have to prove to people that my love is unconditional, because it's really difficult to... Whoa, this may be manipulative. Oh! It's really hard to leave someone when they love you unconditionally.
So again, tying into that fear of people leaving you, the transaction of what love is, and then the have to versus the want to. So if we have the knowledge, like, you have really good self-awareness of what these issues are. Maybe they've just been kind of mixed up, right? But if we can pull them apart and kind of separate now, what does it mean for God to love me because he has to, because that's his character, and for God to love me because he wants to, and then how that translates to people. So, like, what would be your process in kind of sorting through those two differences, the have to and the want to? What do you think about that?
I think... You asked the question again.
How do you, what would be your process maybe in looking between what's the have to and the want to? So what would those differences be? What are the similarities in God's character? You know, if you could make a list.
I think it would be, like, the have to is, like, it's just who he is, right? Like, that's God's character, and, like, because people are created in God's image, like, there is an inherent need to love, and, like, need to be in relationship, and, like, we are designed to be in relationship and fellowship with one another, and so there's that, like, character aspect of it. and like chemical stuff and all that, whatever. But like I think the want to is like, I think there are just people in our lives that we like connect with. Mm-hmm. And I think that like as like conscious Christ followers, love is a gift in a sense. And so like obviously yes, we have to love everybody because that is what we are called to do as Christ followers, but like there is love and then there's love intentionally. Mm-hmm. So like I think a big one is like there are some people that you love but you don't have to surround yourself with. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that people choose to surround themselves with you means that there is love. Because like they can love you but not want to hang out with you. Yeah, that's what a Christ follower is. But they can love you and then they can intentionally love you. Mm-hmm. But then like, I don't have time to get into it because the session's about to end. But like, I think there's the why of why do people intentionally have to love you? Mm-hmm. Like it's the struggle, and it's the constant struggle of like, why do I deserve to be loved intentionally and so well? Because I am loved well by my friends, and I know that. And then having to reconcile and be like, well, if I didn't love them well, they wouldn't be around me. And so, and if I don't love them well, they tell me. Specifically, my one friend. But like, she's a great friend. But like, I think just like having to reconcile that I'm worthy of love, and if I'm created in the image of a God who loves and who is love, mm-hmm. then I must be a little bit good at it sometimes.
Exactly, right? There's because you know you're created in the image of God, yeah. as you said, and you know that if God's character is love and He's created you in His image, like you carry this love as well, which mm-hmm. you've expressed to me. Like I've seen it and felt it from you and heard it from you. So I think that, yeah, you can just walk away with the confidence knowing that because you're created in His image, because you have been designed that way, mm-hmm. amidst all the flaws that you've seen in love and the conditions and transactions that you've witnessed, you know, like obviously you have a heart towards changing that, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's the time to put in those principles of how do we apply to change.
Yeah.
So like what would be the end result of what you want your love to be?
Ask the question again.
Because you know you're made in God's image, yeah. right? Like, what would be your ideal version of you loving people?
That's a good question. Is it dumb to say just like loving them and like genuinely just seeing that they know that they are like I want people to know that they are loved. Mm-hmm. And so I think my ideal version of that is just like seeing that and knowing that. And like so like let's say I buy a coffee for my friend and I don't just do it because I'm like, oh, I want them to love me so I'm gonna buy them coffee. But it's like actually I just want to bless them today. Right? Or like I think a big example is like I had a friend who went through a really tough time the last couple months, and like the only way I knew how to love her in a way that she would feel loved would be sometimes it was just a text message of, hey, I need you, and then I would just sit with her and she'd cry. And like, and I think that like, I think loving people intentionally is just being there for people and showing up. So maybe I just need to remind myself that I can be there and people can know they're loved by me just being there. Crazy.
Something you can definitely put into practice, and sounds like you have, but mm-hmm. can now do even more. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you came in today. Mm-hmm. I love talking to you. I love getting to hear a little bit about your story and hopefully this gave you some clarity, maybe some steps to move forward to, mm-hmm. maybe even just some principles to apply and yeah. be reminded of those truths that God has in your life. So
yeah, for real.
Mm-hmm.